started off selling their instruments, and they sold their arms. As they sold their arms, their composers took up their pen and wrote such pieces as the New World Symphony by Dvorak, or the Enigma variations of Abwehr. That if you go back to why you wanted to sell it, why it was deficient in the department of the dining room more than it was, or never accepted really and truly in the lounge, you might as well lay down your pledge to never polish it again. But there will be one last job that you'll have to do before the person who comes to buy it. And this was decided by one of the great ambassadors, whose name was Ribbentrop, that the thing that he had to do was to make it clear to both sides that the effects of the policy, which was an interpretation of the reasons and the causes which were approaching war in 1939, were going to be able to be allayed by some new change of policy. Unfortunately, since 30th of January 1933, this was, under Chancellor Hitler, going to be less likely, following Neville Chamberlain's visit back in 1938 with his statement about, from this nettle of danger we pluck this flower of honour or peace, or we pluck this flower anyway, or from this flower that represents peace is inherent in this nettle of honour. Who knows really what Shakespeare would have said in a free country had Shakespeare stated in Henry IV anything to do with Hotspur. But if you go back, if you look at the reasons for the war, if you look at the people who are telling you they do not like the way you play, it may be that there is nothing wrong with your instrument. It may be that there is everything wrong with you. Had you considered becoming a composer or a communist? Once upon a time, there was no truer communist than the person who said to me once, they said, "Oh, Saladin, you know that Saladin was one of the greatest uniters of freedom that claimed to represent all these trades." Yes, we heard of him, Saladin Yusuf ibn Haybi, Saladin. And there are those people which tell you about the causes of the war and the immigration of refugees, that it is down in some extent to global warming, and ask that if there is a link between global warming and the refugee and the war in Syria, you will be probably answered in terms of such, "Oh, absolutely, absolutely." And is it absolutely the case that 5 or 6 years of drought, for instance, in Syria, any more than what is a drought situation in India or in Great Britain, has produced the kind of exodus which one is seeing, shall we say, in generally recent times? Let's leave dates out of it, but let's talk about what you heard in the way of refugees before, shall we say, the annihilation of the Saddam Hussein ministry. What you heard about the refugee crisis before the Berlin Wall, what you heard of the refugee crisis before the Iron Lady, and what you heard of the refugee crisis since the wall went up in 1961. What truth is there about the link, or is there no link between climate, drought, and ability to carry on either by living or by emigrating, or as in any exodus by any war? Perhaps you have to look at the life of Heinrich Steinway, who blew the bugle at Waterloo, who was building instruments in his kitchen in 1836, because he was a war refugee, which no one seemed to care, because the fact that Prussia had by some 40 years, 50 years later, been in some amalgamation and before into the states of unification of a verified Germany, which was the plan of King Wilhelm I in 1861. And then you come to 1900, don't you, and you see that all that was unified by Germany and its successful was its surrounding and starvation of Paris in 1870, which emanated in the Treaty of Sedan. And you look at the link between climate change, don't you? You look at the link between water, the need for water. Water. Is there a link between water and war? Oh, absolutely. And you look at the Mona and the Ida dams, that was the quest of the dam busters of World War II in 1943. And you ask yourself what was really thought by Wallace, or what was really thought by the political powers that had more to do with preventing the ability of Herr Hitler to wage war. So you look at Sa'adat al-Yusuf il-Ebi and you look at the Sultan of Egypt and Syria and founder of their Ayyubid dynasty, and although it was named after his father, a Muslim of Kurdish origin I should mention, how much was it achieved by the Allies in the 1980s, or that of the success of foreign policy, which, shall we say, avoided any Bosnian situation, avoided any onslaught to find the perpetrators of the, that's a word, tribulations, those injustices carried out about in the name of its state. And then you wonder about also its parallel. Is it a parallel to do with any drought of 5 or 6 years in Syria, any more than the drought caused by the bombing of the Mona and Ida dams? That sees this parallel, that this person absolutely and truthfully believes that Saladin was trying to unite peoples. But if you look on the net, you'll see that this leader and Muslim of Kurdish origin, Saladin, who led the Muslim oppression to the European Crusaders in the Levant, was not trying to unite, was he, the European Crusaders. He was actually trying to fight against them. So where does the fight become a link in the chain of justice? And the answer is that you could look from his death from 1193 and ask what had been achieved. You could go through the might of the times of the Black Prince of the 13th, 14th century. You could ask yourself why the Black Prince never became king. You might ask yourself why His Majesty Prince Charles plays so admirably the place in the roles that he does in his recommendations for climate change. what truth does it possess that has a Saladin-led Muslim opposition to a European crusader, and yet which crusade of Europeans we are allegedly told has finished or ended then after those crusades of Richard the Lionheart and so forth, and even after Agincourt, that then goes down the line, does it? Is it all caused by drought? The flow of immigration, the Frenchmen into England, culminating in Richard III's annihilation at Bosworth Field in 1485. Is it not the emigration also of the Germans to England that brought in the dynasty of the, before the Stuarts, we're talking of the Stuart, we're talking about the Henry VIII dynasty. Now, are we talking about what are we talking about? Are we talking about the end of empire in the 1916, in the invasion of Gallipoli? Or what are we talking about? Where 250,000 on each side lost their lives. Turks. And under Sir Winston Churchill, what is the future? We are talking about a pattern of more than drought. We are talking about a pattern that leaves something more to be said than the effects of 5 or 6 years of drought. Perhaps the person you are selling your instrument because it does not play to your liking, or you don't really use it anymore. And you are looking at the possibility whereby you could buy a better instrument to warrant your genius. But you are told by somebody that if you were to practice more, you would achieve it. Then there's those people out there, there are those who would say that you can achieve your greatness with the pathetic sonata, which although Beethoven never called it the pathetique himself, that you might be able, for instance, to leave out the third movement, the rondo allegro, the one that goes, the slow movement. You could try leaving that out, could you? It's not so pathetic. the first movement, that would be really the easiest one. And if we take the minister, Mr. Assad, whose regime is, they say, in some causing the rise of ISIS, that if we, shall we say, scrub the board clean, we take out Mr. Assad, this, and then we stop using carrier bags, we stop playing Beethoven as Beethoven, and we start playing my composition, Skittles, hers, which is called Skittles. Had you thought of doing that? Or did you want to actually play the Pathétique worse than you play it actually at the moment? This is the question of who is the prince and the pauper. You have to really understand this, don't you?